Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, depending on where you are. Today is March 6th, and this is another of our bi-weekly SIG Apps call. My name is Maciej, and I'll be your host today. One quick announcement. We are roughly a week, slightly over a week from the 127 code freeze, which is happening um, March 14th over to 15th, depending on where you are on Earth. There is a particular dates and hours when the code freeze happens, outlined in the link that I put in the agenda. But in generally, towards the end of the day on the March 14th is a good way of thinking about it. And I think that was the only announcement I have. Oh, there is a test freeze, which is happening a week after that, which basically means all the code has to be merged by next Tuesday, and then you still have additional week to add additional tests over to your features. So that was all when it comes to announcements. The main two topic of discussion, the first one was already handled uh, by by Ken and I on Friday afternoon when we were thinking prior to this call, and that leaves us only with the topic from Lucy Sweet about scaling up and down deployments. Um, so let's hear from Lucy about the use cases and the idea behind it. Do you
Yeah.
have a presentation that you want to share with, or
Oh no, I don't have a presentation. Sorry, I quite literally just got off a plane
no worries, no
about
worries.
15
I'll
minutes
open the
ago.
issue.
So yeah, just look at the issue. That'll work. Okay, so here I'll give you the quick rundown of where this has come from. I work at Uber. Uber use Kubernetes. I know, big surprise there. Um, and we have a load of workloads running on K8 right now. And while many of them are designed to withstand disruption from a load of instances being dropped all at once or a load of instances appearing all at once, some of them aren't. Is that an anti-pattern? Yeah, probably, but it's an anti-pattern that we have. What I was looking at doing is allowing end users to basically control the speed at which so right now, when you create a deployment and you change the replicas number in the deployment, that's immediately passed to the replica set, and that immediately just instantly scales up or scales down depending on what you change the number to. There's no what's the word? There's no slow rollout or anything. It's just instant in behavior. So in parallel, effectively. What I was thinking of doing is making it so that if you opt into this behavior, so it doesn't break people who already rely on the parallel behavior, that you can scale up and down at a speed that you control. I guess like the two things going on in my head is first off, do we even want this? Because that's kind of important, obviously. And the second thing going on in my head is because there's quite a few approaches we could take to actually do this. As yeah, how would you even do this? But I guess the first thing before I say any more is, yeah, first off, do we even want this? Is this something that should even exist in the API? So I'll stop there for now.
Um, so initially, I would like to start with a couple of questions because several mechanisms already exist within um, deployment and replica set that actually prevent from um, scale up or scale down be super excessive. And actually, I was checking the code earlier before the call. What we do when we're scaling up, we are slowly speeding up um, the scale up operation. So you start with a one, and then everything goes well. We double the scale operation with uh, every next iteration. So it doesn't scale immediately to whatever number you come up with, but it'll be one, two, four, and so forth. Um, so I wonder when you were testing it, uh, what kind of scale up and down you were talking about, whether the numbers were significantly big that this was, I don't know, DDoSing your cluster that you brought this topic up. And in a similar fashion, there is indeed a unfinished work that I was actually looking, and I just found it because the enhancement was closed. Previously, we had the notion that a random pods were being chosen during downscaling, but that has changed with this enhancement, which is currently beta, if I remember correctly. It wasn't promoted. We should probably pick it up and move it across the finishing line, which would allow users to slightly affect the scale down operation. So maybe before answering those, what kind of problems you run into with the current mechanism that we have uh, that you are proposing this enhancement?
Okay, so I guess very quickly, yeah. So when I was testing it on a cluster of my own, it rolled out in parallel. I'm wondering. I guess my initial thought would be, does that progressive rollout happen if you change the pod generation, maybe? But I don't know. Yeah, the actual problems we were dealing with is what's the word? Let's see if I can skirt my NDA the correct side. Is pod, is basically there are some services inside Uber that service owners have written where the pods communicate with each other. I've seen, for example, people before where they like run etcd on the service itself, and then when you suddenly drop a load of them or introduce a load of them, the whole thing blows up in their face. Is that an anti-pattern? Yeah, sure. It's definitely a challenge to deal with. But that's to give an example. It's mostly basically where pods talk to each other is where it starts to become painful. But yeah, and when I tested the behavior in Minikube on, what was it, 1 point, I can't remember, the latest version that Minikube is supporting right now, it instantly took them up in parallel, like with no waiting at all, really. Yeah, sorry, I might have missed something there because there was a lot to digest there, but I hope I just answered all your questions.
There are also I would have to dug what the API is called because I can't remember. But basically, there are options which allow you to decide how fast the rolling update is happening. Have you tried changing those values? The only downside is that they are actually affected during a rollout and not during a scale operation, which is probably one of the issues that you might be running.
Yeah, so to be clear, yeah, this happens when I'm talking about here isn't a rollout, it's just increasing the replicas number up and down. So it doesn't create a new pod generation, and it doesn't go through max surge, max unavailable, or anything like that. It's it's completely separate from, for example, changing something about the pod spec, and then the deployment goes, oh, the pod spec changed, I need to roll out, if that makes sense. I mean, one of the proposals in this issue actually was to, have the option for users to extend how rollouts work to the scale up and down stuff. But anyway, sorry, I'm going off track.
I remember, Philip, you were approaching the topic of the scale up and down and how uh, the strategies are affecting the scale up and down. Uh, do you recall what we decided on that?
I think we mostly discussed regarding the new rollouts, and I'm not sure if I recall something about just changing the replicas.
Hmm. Hmm. Uh, so in general, we try not to add too many new features into the existing controllers. And would probably advise folks to give it a try and try to write their own version of something like that, and then getting back to us with some kind of a proof of concept, which we can better understand the use case and how it works before actually deciding on accepting such a feature. Would that be something that you'd be interested in working on?
Yeah, I can have a look at that. I'm quite literally about to go on PTO, and when I'm going to Seattle, and when I'm in Seattle, I'm not planning to do any K8 stuff. But yeah, when I'm back, I don't mind having a look at that.
I'm not saying that you have to do it right away. It's just
yeah, it's yeah, internally that's basically how we solved it already, is with a controller on top. But it's what's the word? Would be nice to actually integrate that into the main line rather than just hold on to it ourselves in some proprietary code base somewhere.
Yeah, so if you could probably scrape that out a bit and demo such a proof of concept, how it's working, how it's solving the issues you're having, and then based on that, we could make a little bit more informed decision during one of the next calls. I think that would be a reasonable approach, so that we can better understand how you're using it and what you are trying to achieve.
All right, sounds good to me. I'll have a look at that.
Awesome.
Okay, can I ask, have you tried like using stateful sets before, or what was the issue with that?
So there's definitely the obvious question is, why not use stateful sets if these things rely on scaling up and down at a certain speed and talk to each other like that? I agree. There's it's definitely an anti-pattern that these even exist in the deployment controller. Effectively, the issue we have is these services aren't meant to be stateful in the first place, and the fact that they're being hosted on the clusters they're being hosted on is more of the fact that the service owners are pretending they're stateless when they're not. Yeah, but that just gets into organizational pain.
Okay, does anyone else have any questions for Lucy about this particular case? Okay, does anyone else have any other topics that they want to discuss with the group? Hearing none. With that, I'm gonna close the call ahead of time. Thank you very much all for today, and see you next time in 2 weeks.
I just got here. All right, guys. See you in 2 weeks.
Yeah, see you.
See ya.